You're not wearing a tunic yet, but the air already smells like one. Warm linen, olive oil, and the faintest note of last night's cooked leeks. You're standing barefoot in the middle of a Roman domus, a private house tucked away on one of the quieter streets of ancient Rome. It's the kind of home owned by a mid-tier noble or a merchant who married well. Modest marble, modest luxury, the kind of place that says, "I'm important, but not dangerous." The floor beneath your feet is mosaic, thousands of tiny tesserae pressed into a swirling depiction of Neptune wrangling a fish, a dolphin maybe, or a very muscular trout. Your toes press into the cool patterns as a breeze sighs through the open-air atrium, stirring the leaves of a potted fig tree and nudging the hem of a toga left draped too carelessly over a bench. Somewhere, a sleepy pigeon lands on a terracotta roof tile with all the grace of a dropped cabbage. It's early morning in 117 CE, the reign of Emperor Trajan. The empire is booming, its roads stretching from Scotland to Syria. But here, now, it's just you, a slightly uncomfortable sleeping arrangement, and a day you probably won't make it through. Not from danger, but from sheer, inescapable drowsiness. Before we begin, if your eyes are already fluttering like a toga in the wind, consider liking this video. And drop a comment with your location and what time it is where you are. We love knowing which corner of the modern empire you're tuning in from. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Slowly, sleepily, with just a flicker of candlelight and the shuffle of Roman sandals for company. You've just woken from what Romans call primum somnum, the first sleep. You probably drifted off a little after sundown, when the oil lamps burned low and the streets quieted to a low murmur of cart wheels and late-night gossip. Unlike today's uninterrupted slumber, Roman sleep came in phases. After a few hours, people often woke up naturally around midnight. Some would pray, write talk, or just lie there, watching the shadows slide across the ceiling. This in-between time was considered normal. Scholars still debate whether it was biological, cultural, or simply the result of going to bed when there was nothing else to do. You push back the coarse wool blanket, heavy, scratchy, dependable, and sit up on your lectus cubicularis, your sleeping couch. It's low to the ground, slightly slanted, and its mattress is filled with straw and perhaps a layer of feathers. If you're lucky and your aunt doesn't visit too often, the pillow is a cloth sack filled with reeds, which somehow manages to be both too hard and too soft at the same time. There's no concept of a private bedroom as we know it today. If you're in a decent-sized domus, maybe you sleep alone. If not, you share the room with family members, slaves, or that cousin who insists on sleep-talking in perfect Latin declension. Privacy, as far as sleeping goes, is for emperors and the chronically antisocial. The room is dim, but you can see the outlines of household objects. A folded tunic on a stool, a chipped ceramic lamp with a little soot stain, a cup of leftover wine that tastes more like vinegar this morning. You can hear someone walking barefoot in the corridor, the slap-slap of skin against stone tile. Through the central atrium, light pours in from the compluvium, the square hole in the roof designed to let in rain and sun. Beneath it sits the impluvium, a sunken basin to catch water. At this hour, it reflects a pale sky the color of watered-down milk. Dust motes drift lazily in the air, catching the light like slow-falling ash. You shuffle out into the peristyle garden, drawn by the sound of water trickling from a bronze fountain shaped like a lion's head. The garden is symmetrical and modest, cypress trees, rosemary bushes, maybe a single pomegranate tree. The leaves shimmer as the breeze slips through them. A dog somewhere barks once, then gives up and goes back to sleep. Here's your major historical fact for this evening. Wealthier Romans often hired cubicularii, bedroom slaves whose job was to manage sleeping arrangements. They would adjust bedding, light lamps, and gently wake their masters at the appropriate time. There were no alarms, no jarring ringtones, just the soft whisper of a servant in the dark, reminding you that the day had arrived, like it or not. You pass under a colonnade, barefoot, as the stone cools your soles. Somewhere in the kitchen, bread is being sliced and dipped in watered wine, maybe a smear of soft cheese or a fig preserved in honey. Breakfast is light, functional. The idea of morning pancakes or crispy bacon would seem almost absurd to a Roman. They believed in eating well later, not first thing. You return to your room, slipping back onto your couch for a few minutes. The second sleep will come soon. Secundum somnum, once your mind quiets again. The Romans were masters of rhythm, and sleep was a cycle to be honored. Even in the middle of the night, they understood the value of not forcing it. Here's your obscure cultural tidbit. In some households, people would leave amulets near the bed to ward off nightmares. These could be small figures of Mercury, pebbles engraved with Greek letters, or even a painted eye on a potsherd. One particularly odd charm involved hanging a small dead mouse over the bed, a faux cure for restless dreams. Needless to say, this trend didn't catch on in IKEA catalogs. Historians still debate whether the segmented sleep of Romans was due to necessity, custom, or simply the natural order of things when candles are expensive and evenings are quiet. Whatever the cause, the outcome was a life paced by darkness and dawn, by flickering lamps and quiet dreams. You lie back once more, eyes half-lidded. From the street, a cart rolls past, its iron wheels groaning over cobblestones. A man coughs, then silence again, the kind of silence that feels lived in, ancient, thick with dreams. Sleep here is not just rest. It is routine, ritual, woven into the fabric of the house, the city, the very walls around you. You breathe, and the room breathes with you. Don't fall asleep just yet. We've only just begun. You open your eyes to soft light, diffused like milk through linen. The air is warmer now, no longer chilled from the stone, but carrying that gentle, flowery scent of baked bread and yesterday's olive oil. Someone is sweeping in the atrium. The broom bristles whisper against the tile, and for a moment, it almost sounds like the sea. You sit up slowly, stretching one leg at a time. The bed groans again. Perhaps it's your back, perhaps it's the lectus. Either way, both of you are aging gracefully. You reach for your tunic and slip it over your head, the linen brushing against your skin like a kindly old uncle, rough but well-meaning. Through the open shutters, Rome awakens. Carts roll over the cobbled street with that familiar chuck-chuck-chuck rhythm. A fish seller calls out today's catch in tones more suited to an amphitheater than a back alley. In the distance, the forum begins to buzz with voices and the thud of sandals on marble. You make your way toward the kilina, the kitchen, a cramped, smoky corner of the house tucked near the back. It's not for entertaining. It's where the work gets done. Bread is already cooling on a wooden plank, still warm. A ceramic cup sits next to a jug of watered wine, the typical Roman breakfast. You dunk the bread and chew thoughtfully. It's not exciting, but it does the job. Romans aren't big on breakfast fanfare. That's reserved for cena, the evening feast. You step into the street, blinking under the sun, which is now properly awake. It bounces off whitewashed walls and bronze statues, off shiny armor and greasy hair. A neighbor nods at you, holding a basket of laundry and a sleepy child. Another is arguing with a cart driver over a dented wheel. Everyone is busy being Roman. You head toward the thermae, the public bath. Not to bathe yet, but to observe, to listen. The bathhouse is the ancient equivalent of a cafe, a spa, and a social media feed all rolled into one. People soak, chat, gossip, conduct business deals, or simply exist in steam and silence. There are three main sections: frigidarium, cold; tepidarium, warm; and caldarium, hot. Romans believed the key to good health, physical and mental, was cycling through all three. Plus a generous amount of scraping oil off your skin with a curved blade called a strigil. It sounds unpleasant, but somehow ends up being deeply satisfying. Like finally deleting your inbox. You sit on a stone bench in the apoditerium, the changing room. Men are removing their sandals, chatting about last night's dreams or whether the grain ships will arrive on time. One man claims he saw the god Janus in a vision and now plans to invest in a new olive press. No one questions this logic. And here's your major historical fact. Roman bathhouses weren't just for the elite. Even the lower classes had access, thanks to public funding and emperors who knew that clean citizens are calm citizens. The baths were open to men, women, usually at different hours, and sometimes children. You could even rent a towel. Your obscure cultural tidbit for this morning. In some baths, signs were posted warning patrons not to relieve themselves in the caldarium. Apparently, the hot water was tempting in all the wrong ways. You can imagine the complaints. "Excuse me, Marcus, but your leg is glowing suspiciously." As you leave the bathhouse, refreshed in mind if not yet in body, you stroll past a temple dedicated to Somnus, the god of sleep himself. His image is carved in marble, reclining with a poppy in one hand and a gentle, closed smile. He's what you might call the patron saint of naps. Some Romans would leave offerings at his altar when they couldn't sleep, asking him for dreams, rest, or the luxury of uninterrupted slumber. You turn a corner and find yourself in the Subura, the noisy, crowded district of Rome. Here, life is a little rougher. The buildings lean into the street, windows open, people shouting from upper floors, occasionally dumping water, or worse, out the window. You tread carefully. Remember that garden you walked through earlier? The private hortus, with its lavender and lion head fountain? It feels distant now. That's the thing about Rome. It holds multitudes. Opulence and squalor, silence and chaos, baths and buckets from windows. Historians still debate whether Romans truly liked sleeping, or if it was simply tolerated, something to endure between meals and orations. Sleep was never idolized. It was functional, like a jug or a spoon. Still, the reverence shown to Somnus hints at deeper longing. Perhaps, even in the busiest empire on earth, people just wanted a little peace and quiet. You pause outside a bakery. A new tray of libum, a soft, sweet cheese bread, has just come out of the oven. You buy one, warm and slightly sticky, and carry it back through the winding alleys. Your steps slow. The sunlight has shifted. The streets are quieter now. Afternoon naps, meridiatio, are common. Shops close. Conversations dull to murmurs. It's siesta time, Roman style. You return home, passing the same fig tree, now heavy with shadows. You lie once more on your lectus, the straw mattress sighing beneath you. Outside, a cicada buzzes. The breeze has returned, smelling of thyme and smoke. Your eyes flutter, and you drift into a second sleep, somewhere between Rome and a dream. You wake not with urgency, but with a soft hum behind your eyes, like your brain isn't quite done rebooting. The room glows in that syrupy, late afternoon light, thick and slow, like honey warming in a clay pot. You're on your back, arms sprawled, half of your tunic twisted like a disobedient toga across your chest. It's unclear whether you meant to nap or whether the mattress won that argument for you. Outside your window, you hear the shifting rhythms of Rome as it stretches into evening. A child runs by, giggling. A vendor calls out something about pickled fish. A wooden cart rolls over the cobbles with the uneven beat of a tired horse. The midday nap, or meridiatio, has come to an end. In the Roman world, napping is not a guilty pleasure, it's a civic right. Entire streets fall silent. Shopkeepers lower their shutters. Even the forum dulls to a low buzz, like a dinner party after everyone's had wine. The Romans knew that the body, like the Republic, needs pauses, and preferably ones that involve lying on one side near an open window. You sit up slowly, every joint reporting in. The lectus creaks beneath you, a soft protest, like an old senator being asked to stand. You stretch your legs, rub your eyes, and run a hand through your hair. It sticks slightly with dried sweat and sleep. You could wash, but you also could not, and the latter sounds very Roman. The house is still. Somewhere in the kitchen, a servant shifts a pot. The sound is distant, domestic, and oddly comforting. You walk to the peristyle, the inner garden, and sit beside the lion-headed fountain. Its water glugs gently, catching golden light like a lazy chandelier. Bees hover near the rosemary. You admire their focus. Romans respected bees, creatures that worked hard, made something sweet, and didn't complain unless stepped on. A bit like farmers, really. Here's your major historical fact. In ancient Rome, the cena, or main evening meal, was the social centerpiece of the day. It began around the 9th hour, roughly 3 p.m. in summer, and could last until nightfall. It wasn't just dinner. It was a performance, a negotiation, a chance to show off wealth, rhetoric, or just a really impressive cheese. Tonight, you won't host, but you will attend. The host, A merchant named Lucius lives 2 streets over and insists on reclining more than speaking. His wife, Flavia, does not speak much at all, but somehow conveys disappointment in everything with just her eyebrows. Their dog has a gold collar. Their wine, regrettably, tastes like regret. You prepare by washing your hands with scented oil, probably myrrh, or something claiming to be. You change into a cleaner tunic. Not new, just less dusty. Your sandals are brushed. Your belt is tightened. You smell vaguely of pine and ambition. You make your way through the city. The Vai, Roman streets, are still busy, but the edges have softened. Shadows stretch like spilled ink between columns. The marble of nearby temples glows peach and rose. You pass a column carved with battle scenes, swords and horses, glories frozen in stone. You pause, admire, then continue. After all, you're off to dinner, not war. As you walk, you pass an insula, a tall, narrow apartment block where most Romans live. Its wooden upper floors lean slightly, as if sighing under their own weight. The smell of cooking wafts down. Lentils, garlic, something vaguely burnt. A child leans out of a window, yelling at someone below. A dog barks in return. It is unclear who started the conversation. Your obscure cultural tidbit? Romans often slept with small wax figurines of household gods, Laras and Penates, on nearby shelves or shrines. These tiny deities protected the home, watched over food, and supposedly ensured peaceful dreams. Some were elaborately painted, others crude lumps with eyes, but all were loved. Some Romans even spoke to them before bed, telling them about the day, or asking for help digesting that 4th helping of olives. You reach Lucius's domus. It is larger than yours, with decorative marble in the entry and a slave who opens the door so silently you nearly walk into him. He bows. You nod. Mutual awkwardness achieved. Inside, the air is thick with roasted meats, perfume, and ambition. Guests recline on couches around a low table, each arranged in classic triclinium style. 3 couches in a U shape, each seat assigned with the political precision of a Senate subcommittee. You find your place, not too central, not too peripheral, just visible enough to be forgotten politely. The dinner begins. Starters include eggs, salad, and mushrooms soaked in vinegar. The conversation bounces from local gossip to the latest gladiator match. One man insists he saw a lion yawn in the Colosseum before the fight began. Another claims to have bought a Greek slave who can recite Homer backward. Flavia raises one eyebrow. Her dog sneezes. You nibble olives. You sip wine diluted with water. Romans never drink it straight, unless they want to be called a barbarian. A poet recites something long and melancholic about a dead tree. You applaud. The tree probably deserved it. Historians still debate how formal these dinners were for average citizens. Did every Roman recline while eating? Or was this reserved for the elite and upwardly mobile? The answer, as usual, lies somewhere between absolutely and only if your cousin wasn't using the good couch. The sun sets fully now, and torches are lit. Shadows dance on plastered walls. The servants bring out honey cakes and nuts, and somewhere outside, a lyre is being tuned badly. You thank your host, bow to the dog, and make your exit. As you walk home, the stars blink to life. The air cools. You pass sleeping stalls, shuttered shops, and the faint scent of jasmine. You are full, warm, and suddenly very aware of how heavy your eyelids are. The city hums around you, but your body hums louder. It wants the lectus, the straw, the linen sheet that smells like rosemary and heat. You step into your domus, unlace your sandals, and slip into your sleeping tunic. You lower yourself onto the bed, and there it is again, that quiet creak, that soft exhale, that welcome home. Sleep is coming, slowly, kindly, but not quite yet. Night in Rome isn't silent, it's simply hushed, as if the city, after a long day of being important, finally allows itself a soft yawn. You lie awake in the dark, your eyes adjusting slowly to the lantern glow, flickering somewhere down the hall. Outside, the cicadas sing like tiny, persistent poets, and a breeze slips through the open shutters like a thief who only wants to borrow your thoughts. Your cubiculum, the small bedroom, is bare by modern standards. One low-oil lamp with a dancing flame. One stool with a folded tunic. One small niche in the wall holding two Lauras, household gods, watching you with the same expression they give everyone, timeless indifference. You whisper to them, half joking, half sincere. Keep the bad dreams away. One seems to nod, or maybe it's just the flame. You're not asleep yet. That's okay. Neither are most of your neighbors. This is the in-between time, the quiet hour between wakefulness and the second sleep. Romans called it the Vigilia, a period that follows the first few hours of primum somnum and precedes secundum somnum, the second wave of slumber. It's not insomnia, it's culture. And what do people do at this hour? Some pray, some think, some lie in the dark and quietly rehash arguments they didn't win. Some write poems, some eat. Yes, Romans might rise in the middle of the night to nibble a fig or sip watered wine. The body demands little, but demands it politely. You roll onto your side. The straw mattress shifts underneath you with a familiar crunch. It's not a plush bed, but there's something honest about it. No hidden springs, no secrets, just straw, linen, and the weight of your own fatigue. Somewhere nearby, a street lamp flickers, or maybe it's a torch. It casts long shadows against the wall, jagged lines that stretch across the ceiling and flicker like distant dreams trying to reach you. Here's your major historical fact. In wealthier Roman homes, even the middle-of-the-night routines had rituals. It wasn't uncommon for a servant to quietly enter the sleeping room to adjust the bedding or refill the oil lamp without waking the sleeper. There was an art to moving silently across mosaic floors, one that could take years to master. You close your eyes. For a while, all you hear is breathing. Your own, the houses, the cities. But not all Romans had the luxury of peace at night. In the crowded insulae, those tall tenement buildings packed with laborers, shopkeepers, and families, sleep was communal and chaotic. One person's vigilia might involve rocking a crying baby or checking for rats, or, God forbid, both at once. Thin wooden walls, creaking staircases, nighttime arguments. And yet, somehow, people still manage to dream. You sit up and pour a little water into a clay cup. It tastes like pottery and sleep. You sip slowly, then walk barefoot to the window. The cool tile soothes your feet. The wind outside smells of fig leaves and distant charcoal fires. Across the alley, in another domus, you see a woman lighting a lamp. Her face is lit for a moment, like a painting come to life, then disappears into shadow. Perhaps she too woke from a strange dream. Perhaps she's feeding a newborn. Perhaps she simply likes this hour when the city forgets itself. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believed you could invite good dreams by placing bay leaves under your pillow. Not to be eaten, just to smell. It was said that bay leaves made the mind clear and the spirit light, though one satirist claimed the only thing they attracted were ants. You return to your bed and lie down again. The oil lamp guttered out while you were away, and now the room is perfectly dark. Dark like a cave. Dark like a thought you haven't found words for. You pull the blanket up and tuck your knees slightly, just enough to feel held. Historians still debate whether the Vigilia was embraced or endured. Was it a sacred pause or a frustrating interruption? Some sources paint it as a time of calm introspection. Others as something to pass through quietly, hoping for dawn. You shift once more, finding the sweet spot in the straw. Your breathing deepens. Your arms relax. Your mind starts to drift, not in words, not in pictures, but in textures. A warm roof tile, the brush of linen, the memory of garum you'd rather forget. Outside, a dog barks once. A cart rolls in the distance. A rooster, confused, announces nothing at all. And then, like the falling of a soft curtain, you sink into secundum somnum, the second sleep. This one is deeper, less vivid. It has no dreams, just warmth, quiet, and time. You wake to a faint sound, soft footsteps across stone, like someone walking on tiptoe through a memory. The room is still dim, lit only by the earliest suggestion of dawn. Outside, the stars have begun to lose their nerve. Inside, the walls seem to hold their breath. You are not jolted awake. There's no alarm, no aggressive buzz from a rectangle of metal. Just a quiet shift in the air. This is how Romans preferred it, gently, with dignity. If you lived in a wealthier household, a cubicularius, a personal bedroom servant, might have already stirred you, whispering your name softly as they folded back the blanket. If you lived more modestly, the sun itself was your servant. Or, in your case today, perhaps it was the creak of a floorboard that nudged you back to the world. Your second sleep is over, and morning has returned, modestly dressed in pale blue and birdsong. You rise, joints stiff, eyes crusty with dreams you no longer remember. The linen sheet falls away as you swing your legs over the side of the bed. Your toes find the cool tile floor. Not cold, just honest. You stand and stretch, slowly, the kind of stretch that pulls open the back, invites breath into forgotten corners of the ribs, and briefly reminds you you're made of muscle and hope. A low yawn escapes your mouth before you can stop it. Somewhere, a pigeon coos in agreement. You move through the house. The atrium is already awash in the light of a new day. Water in the impluvium catches the early sun and throws it in shimmering patterns across the walls. The fig tree in the peristyle garden stirs slightly. Dew clings to its leaves like whispered promises. In the kitchen, a pot of barley porridge simmers over coals. A servant stokes the embers with practiced hands. You nod a quiet greeting. They return it with a glance, then add a bit more honey to the pot without asking. They've seen your face. They know what kind of sleep you had. Here's your major historical fact. Romans typically began their day at sunrise, or shortly before. The official start of business, known as the ora prima, was around 6 a.m., depending on the season. Before that came the morning rituals, washing, praying to the household gods, and mentally preparing oneself for whatever chaos the forum might deliver. You wash your hands and face using water poured from a ceramic jug into a bronze basin. The splash is cold, bracing, and not entirely welcome. You dry off with a linen cloth and murmur a short offering to the Laras in their niche. It's not formal, just enough to say, "Thanks, let's not ruin this day." Your tunic, set out neatly, smells of ash and rosemary. You dress slowly, wrapping the cloth around yourself with muscle memory older than thought. You strap your sandals, adjusting the leather thongs with fingers still half asleep. You pass through the doorway and step out into the street. Rome, as always, is awake before you are. Vendors are setting up carts. Children carry water jugs, sloshing half the contents onto their legs. A philosopher on a street corner gestures wildly at a yawning passerby who just wanted some figs a goat, inexplicably alone, trots confidently past with the air of a senator late to session. Your obscure cultural tidbit for today. Some Romans believed that sneezing right after waking up was a bad omen, unless you immediately crossed your fingers and whispered a quick blessing to Fortuna. Not doing so meant you might trip, lose a coin, or argue with your mother-in-law. Possibly all three. You continue down the street toward the Forum, the heart of public life in Rome. Even this early, the place is already echoing with voices. Merchants setting up stalls, lawyers rehearsing speeches, citizens arguing about everything from taxes to turnips. You don't need to be here today, but you pass through anyway. There's comfort in the bustle, in knowing that people have walked this way for centuries, worried about the same trivial and tremendous things. Will the grain ship arrive? Is this toga flattering? Did I dream about the wrong god last night? Historians still debate the exact nature of dream interpretation in Roman culture. Was it superstition, religion, or something in between? Some dreams were recorded, others forgotten. Some believed to be messages from the divine, others blamed on indigestion or too much lentil stew. You stop by a public fountain and cup your hands under the stream. The water is cool, pure, piped through the aqueducts from miles away. You splash it on your face again, this time less out of necessity and more out of ritual. You are fully awake now, not sharp, not hurried, just present. You return home as the sun climbs higher. Inside the domus, the scented dishes have been cleared from the night before. A servant sweeps the floor with quiet precision. The scent of garlic and wax still lingers faintly in the air. You lie back on the lectus, not to sleep, just to think. Your body knows the rhythm of this house, of this city, of this life. And for the moment, that is enough. Later in the morning, Rome becomes fully itself, no longer stretching or yawning, but stepping confidently into its daily chaos, like it invented the concept of being important. And in many ways, it did. From your doorway, the city looks less like stone and more like theater. Vendors gesturing with aprons tied like togas, magistrates parading down the via with scribes at their heels, children weaving between legs like miniature chariots without brakes. You pull your tunic straight and step out, greeted by that same peculiar cocktail of smells: baked bread, horse sweat, wet limestone, and something distinctly fishy that no one wants to talk about. The sun is climbing steadily, casting sharp shadows from every column and cornice. Rome doesn't glow in the morning, it glares. You decide to walk without purpose. Romans call it ambulatio, a walk for thinking, watching, digesting, or, in your case, avoiding your neighbor who still wants to borrow your laundry basin. You drift through familiar streets, past the bakery, where a boy fans flies from honey cakes, past the Falonica, where cloth is being pounded clean in vats of urine, past the taberna, where a man is already nursing a ceramic cup of spiced wine, eyes half shut like he's hoping it will turn into soup. You turn a corner and find yourself back at the Forum. You hadn't meant to come here again, but that's Rome for you. It rearranges itself when you're not paying attention. The Forum is louder now, orators shouting, coins clinking, sandals slapping. Marble columns rise like ancient teeth from the ground, and statues judge you with blind stone eyes. Today's major historical fact: much of Roman political and legal life happened right here in the Forum. Trials, elections, speeches, all played out in the open, in full view of gods, pigeons, and anyone with an ear for scandal. It was reality TV, only with more togas and fewer ad breaks. As you lean against a shaded pillar, you overhear two women arguing about a dream. One saw her deceased father scolding her for not lighting the household altar. The other saw Mercury flying into her kitchen and stealing her cheese. Both are convinced their dreams are omens. You nod politely and move on before they ask your opinion. Sleep comes up surprisingly often in Roman public life, perhaps because, for all their glory in warfare and poetry, they were deeply concerned with rest. Good sleep was linked to good health, good behavior, even good luck. A tired man, they believed, was vulnerable to bad decisions and worse omens. You wander past the temple of Castor and Pollux. A priest is lighting incense, his movements methodical, almost hypnotic. You stop and inhale. The smoke is sweet, resin and something herbal. You're not entirely sure whether it's meant for the gods or to cover the smell of the nearby latrine. Probably both. Your obscure cultural tidbit: Romans sometimes invoke deities specifically for sleep. Somnus, of course, was the god of sleep itself, often shown with wings on his temples and poppies in his hands. But others, like Apollo or Diana, were also called upon, especially if dreams needed deciphering. In some shrines, people even slept overnight on sacred floors in the hope of receiving divine dreams. Whether they succeeded or just woke up with a stiff neck, no one recorded. You begin your walk home, the sun now directly overhead. The streets shimmer faintly with heat. A dog sleeps belly up in the shade of a statue. A fishmonger naps with his head against a barrel, mouth slightly open, dreaming perhaps of a better-smelling job. Historians still debate whether the Roman practice of divided sleep, first and second sleep, was universally followed or more common among certain classes. Some suggest the poor, who work long hours, may not have enjoyed such luxury. Others argue that the body naturally falls into this rhythm when unbothered by electric light, alarm clocks, or emails from a centurion. Back in your domus, the air is cooler. The shutters have been drawn to keep the heat out. You remove your sandals and sit in the triclinium, not to eat, but just to let your spine uncoil. A servant offers you a cup of water steeped with mint. You accept. The cup is chipped. The mint is strong. Both are perfect. You think about lying down again, not for a full nap, just a brief rest. But then you remember the laundry, the letters to copy, the floor that needs sweeping. You think about all these things and do none of them. Instead, you walk back to the peristyle garden. You watch a bee dance around the pomegranate flowers. You feel the breeze push through the colonnade. You sit on the same stone bench you sat on yesterday, and the day before. The world hums gently. Your heartbeat slows. Your shoulders drop a little. You are not asleep, but you are no longer fully awake either. By mid-afternoon, Rome leans into its stillest hours. The city is awake, yes, but it has the decency to lower its voice. The clang of tools and the clatter of carts becomes less insistent, softened by heat. Dust curls in the air like incense. The dogs are asleep again, of course. Somewhere in the distance, someone is either playing a flute or torturing one. You, meanwhile, are reclining in the shade of your hortus, the private garden inside your domus. It's not large, but it's yours. The pomegranate tree has split one of its fruits wide open on a branch. Ants climb in, uninvited but diligent. The fountain gurgles quietly nearby. Your own little river, minus the drownings and the reed nymphs. Your body feels that curious Roman exhaustion, not from running or working, but from existing so thoroughly. The kind of fatigue that settles in when your mind has wandered down 3 winding streets and back again, even if your feet stayed put. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the garden tilts. But no, not yet. You return to your feet, slowly, because dignity matters, and wander through the house again. The floors are cool stone. The walls are painted in frescoes, birds, vines, imaginary architecture, all bright and faded at the same time. One of them features a reclining Venus holding a fan, forever unbothered by the world's concerns. You envy her posture, her painted calm. In the next room, someone is repairing a bronze oil lamp. It had sputtered the night before, casting nervous shadows that made your sleep feel crowded. The servant reshapes the wick with a tiny knife. Sparks jump and die. You thank him, and he bows slightly, his fingers soot-smudged, his expression unreadable. Here's your major historical fact. In wealthier Roman households, lighting was a serious business. Oil lamps, torch holders, even reflective bronze dishes were used to control and enhance the glow. Light wasn't just about vision. It shaped mood, status, even conversation. A dim room was restful. A brightly lit triclinium, an invitation to eat, talk, and argue until midnight. You wander to your writing corner. A small desk, a wax tablet, a stylus. You don't have anything urgent to write, which is exactly why you sit there. Romans didn't always write to publish. They wrote to think. Letters, musings, lists. Some scratched poems into the wax, only to scrape them away again. The wax remembers everything. For a while, you trace a few words. Something about a dream you had. A roof leaking stars. A woman speaking in riddles. A goat, always a goat. You don't know if it meant anything, but you write it down anyway. The Roman gods are like moody artists. If you ignore their messages, they might just stop sending them. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans would rub the ashes of burned laurel leaves on their eyelids before sleep, believing it would bring clearer dreams. Others believed sleeping with a piece of onyx in their hand would prevent nightmares. If both failed, they blamed Mercury. Poor Mercury, always the scapegoat. A breeze slides in from the shutters, cool and welcome. It smells faintly of thyme and dust. You take that as a sign. A good one. So you lie down. Not on the lectus. Not this time. On a woven mat near the window. You rest your head on your arm. The tile floor cools your skin. The breeze moves across your body like a lazy ghost. Outside, someone laughs, soft, distant, unbothered. And there, in that ancient pause between errands and evening, you fall not into sleep, but into something gentler, into stillness. The light has changed again. It's become amber now, thicker, quieter, the kind of light that speaks in hushed tones. You wake slowly, without knowing if you were truly asleep. Your mouth is dry. Your limbs are heavy in that delicious way only a mid-afternoon nap can provide. For a few seconds, you don't know where you are. Then you hear the fountain, the breeze, Rome whispering beneath your window. You're home. The city is changing its clothes again. The sun prepares to descend. People begin returning from a forum, their sandals scuffed, their voices tired. Some carry scrolls. Others carry bread. All carry the weight of another Roman day nearly completed. You sit up. You stretch. Your spine pops like an amphora lid under pressure. No one applauds, but they should. There's a fig on the windowsill. You don't know who left it there. Maybe a servant. Maybe your past self. You bite into it slowly. It's overripe and perfect. Sweet, seedy, with a hint of sun still inside. You return to the triclinium, the formal dining space. The cushions have been fluffed. The oil lamps have been cleaned. Someone has left a fresh cloth on the table. It smells faintly of lavender. The space is quiet now, but you can already feel the echoes of tonight's meal beginning to take shape. Here's your major historical fact. While dinner was the social highlight of the day, the actual preparation was often entirely managed by enslaved cooks or hired professionals. Some of these cooks were culinary artists, trained, inventive, sometimes more valuable than furniture. There are records of chefs being sold for outrageous sums just because they could properly fillet a flamingo. You won't be eating flamingo tonight. Probably lentils, olives, a bit of cheese, maybe stewed dates if you're lucky. Still, you can almost smell it already. The harmony of garlic, herbs, and that sharp vinegar note that Romans loved just a little too much. You walk through the tablinum, the room that connects front and back of the house. Scrolls are stacked on a side table. A statue of your grandfather stares at you like he's still unimpressed. You nod at him. He doesn't nod back. In the courtyard, someone is lighting a torch. The flame flutters for a moment, then steadies. Its glow dances on the walls, bringing the frescoes to life. Venus smiles. Apollo lifts his lyre. Even the dog at the base of the garden wall seems to grin. Your obscure cultural tidbit. In some parts of the empire, people believed that if you burned rosemary at twilight, it would keep away wandering spirits who might interrupt your sleep. The same rosemary was also used to flavor lamb. Romans were nothing if not efficient. You sit on the edge of the fountain, watching as the sky deepens from gold to plum. Cicadas sing again. A servant opens the door to check the wind. You catch the scent of bread baking, dense and fragrant. Someone is grinding pepper. Someone else is laughing. Historians still debate whether the Romans actually slept better than we do. They had no blue light, no overfilled calendars, number 24-hour marketplaces. But they had worries about gods, about taxes, about their cousin's terrible poetry, the kind of things that visit you in the dark when you forget to leave a lamp lit. You return to your room and light the newly fixed oil lamp. It burns clean and steady now. You nod approvingly. It nods back in its way. You sit on the lectus, waiting for the night to settle. The air is cooled. Your skin hums with the day's sun. You pull the linen sheet over your knees. You exhale, and from the street below, Rome exhales with you. The sky above Rome has turned to velvet. Not black, not entirely. It's a dusky, textured blue, tinged with amber at the edges, like an old cloak dipped in candlelight. Torches flicker along the streets and courtyards. Oil lamps glow behind woven shutters, and hearth fires begin to dim into their nighttime dance. Rome does not fall asleep like a switch flipping. It fades softly, like ink spreading in warm water. You lie on your lectus, that familiar, slightly uneven couch of straw and linen. Not yet under the sheet, but close. Your tunic clings to your shoulders with the last of the day's warmth. The breeze through the shutters is lighter now, cooler, curious. It brings in the scent of baked clay, burning olive oil, and distant rosemary. You know these smells. You've fallen asleep to them many times. There is no urgent reason to stay awake. No fires to put out, no scrolls to read. The house is quieter now. The footsteps fewer, the voices soften. A servant walks past your doorway, carrying a small dish of honeyed figs. They pause, notice you're still up, and move on in silence. Everything happens in silence now. You turn slightly. Your hip presses into the mattress, and the straw shifts beneath you with its usual whisper crunch. You sigh, a long Roman sigh, one inherited through generations of well-fed, overly contemplative citizens. Outside, someone begins playing the tibia, a twin-piped flute. It's a slow melody, simple, probably a lullaby. Maybe they're playing for a child, or a lover, or a god. You can't tell, but the notes float through the air, thin and silvery, like mist with opinions. You let the music fill the corners of the room. Here's your major historical fact. Romans believed sleep was a physical and spiritual necessity, not just a pause, but a realignment. The second sleep wasn't some mysterious custom, it was practical. Without artificial light, the night was too long for one unbroken stretch of rest. So they embraced it. They made peace with waking in the dark and used that time to write, think, pray, or simply exist. A culture that allowed space for stillness. Imagine that. You pull the linen sheet over your stomach. It's been warmed by your own body, and it carries the subtle scent of lavender and smoke. This isn't the kind of bed that hugs you. It's the kind that reminds you where you are and when. You are in ancient Rome. You are in a room with painted walls, a clay lamp, and one loyal mosquito circling just out of reach. You wonder, briefly, what others are doing in this moment. In another house, a family might be praying before their lararium, the small altar for household gods. In an insula, a woman rocks her baby to sleep with the creaking of the upper floors above her. Somewhere, a poet paces, chasing down the last line of a stubborn verse. And here you are, alive, breathing, horizontal. Your obscure cultural tidbit. It was thought that sleeping with a small pouch of herbs, often bay leaves, chamomile, or even crushed poppy heads, under your pillow could invite prophetic dreams. These were called incubatio dreams, and some temples allowed worshippers to sleep on sacred floors, hoping the gods would visit them with answers. Of course, sometimes the dreams just involved goats and taxes, which was either divine wisdom or a coincidence. You glance at the oil lamp on the low table beside you. The flame is smaller now. It wavers. It knows its time is almost up. Historians still debate whether the Romans were more rested than we are. They didn't have caffeine, deadlines, or social media, but they did have late-night dinner parties, noisy neighbors, and the occasional citywide fire. Some argue that their segmented sleep offered deeper rest. Others think they were just making the best of long, dark hours and lumpy beds. You listen to the wind again. It carries with it soft sounds from outside, sandals against stone, the squeak of a gate, the low murmur of someone telling a story in the next courtyard. Their voice rises and falls, musical and slow. You can't hear the words, only the shape of them. That's enough. You exhale and adjust your pillow. It's stuffed with reeds and smells faintly of last summer. You settle your shoulders. The rhythm of your breathing matches the rhythm of Rome at rest. Steady, thoughtful, always slightly dramatic. You remember the day, not in detail, but in moments. The bread, the laughter, the fountain, the goat that judged you in passing. The night has fully arrived now. You are wrapped in it. And soon, the second sleep will take you, just as it always has. No ceremony, no alarm, just quiet, and breath, and Rome. And now you drift, not in a heroic way, not like Odysseus sailing home. No, this is quieter, more like a leaf on the Tiber, spinning slowly in eddies of memory and breath. You don't fall asleep. You sink into it, like stepping backward into warm water with your eyes closed, trusting the surface will catch you. Your body is almost forgotten now. The weight of your arms, the press of your heels, the tightness in your shoulders from walking too far in the sun, all of it loosens. The sheet has settled into the shape of your rest. Even the straw mattress, always a little too honest about your spine, has decided to be kind tonight. Outside, Rome keeps humming. Not loudly, just enough that you know it's there. A cart creaks in the distance. A dog whines once, then is shushed by a hand or a biscuit. Two men argue softly, their voices rising and falling like waves in a dream you haven't quite had yet. Your oil lamp is low now. The flame flickers in tiny spasms, throwing soft, liquid shadows on the plastered wall. One of the shadows looks like a fish, another like a laurel leaf. You can't tell if they're really there or if your eyes have already begun to close. Here's your major historical fact. The Roman concept of sleep was deeply entangled with the divine. Somnus, the god of sleep, had his own quiet realm in the underworld, lush, peaceful, overgrown with poppies and vines. The entrance was guarded by soft dreams and closed to loud noises. It was believed that real rest, the kind that heals, came from being touched by Somnus himself. Not physically, just whispered into stillness. Tonight, you think maybe he has passed your door. You're not fully asleep yet, but your thoughts are no longer straight lines. They bend. They meld into soft shapes. You think about the market, then about bees, then about whether the moon is heavier than it looks. Then you forget what thinking is. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans, especially in the countryside, believed that tying a red string around the big toe before bed would prevent sleepwalking. Others believed it summoned good dreams. One particularly nervous senator was said to wear 3 red strings and still wandered into his garden mumbling about missing scrolls. Rome was full of rituals, and none of them ever stopped a dream from having its way. You curl slightly onto your side. The straw rustles under your hip. A breeze brushes against your temple like a mother tucking you in with the edge of a sigh. The world shrinks. The painted dolphin on your wall disappears into shadow. The ceiling turns to velvet. The air in the room becomes thick and slow. You've left the part of the night where things happen. You're in the part where nothing is required. Historians still debate how well Romans slept. Some argue they were more in tune with natural rhythms. Others suggest city noise, oil fumes, and overcrowded quarters made rest as elusive as tax reform. But the truth probably lies in the middle. Some nights were rough. Others, like this one, were woven from silence. You are not dreaming yet, but you're close. You can feel the edge of sleep pressing gently against your chest, like a heavy, kind blanket that smells like old wood and time. There's nothing left to remember. No figures to impress. No gods to appease. Just rest, and Rome breathing with you, and the knowledge that even 2,000 years ago, someone lay exactly like this, on their back, beneath a flickering lamp, listening to the city fade. Sleep finds you fully now, like a long-lost friend arriving without announcement, slipping into the room barefoot, pulling a blanket of dark silk over your eyes. You do not fall asleep so much as you are drawn in. There's no resistance, no questioning, only a kind of soft surrender, the kind that Roman philosophers tried to describe and always failed, because some things, even for Cicero, are too quiet for language. Your breath slows. Your arms, once curled gently by your sides, forget they exist. The weight of the day, sun, stone, sandals, and stray thoughts melts from your chest like snow vanishing on warm marble. But make no mistake, Rome still exists around you, even as you lie still, even as your mind begins to blur at the edges. The city hums. It breathes. Not loudly, not proudly, but steadily, like a cat curled in the corner of a fading firelight. The torch in the courtyard has burned down to its final inch. Its flame glows deep orange, casting soft shapes on the mosaic tiles. Little fragments of lions, grapes, spears, and clouds. The images shift slowly as the light flickers. If you were awake, you might try to find a story in the shadows. But you're not. You're already adrift. Far off, you hear the muffled clop of a horse's hooves, a late traveler or a patrol, probably returning from the city gates. Somewhere closer, a dog lets out one sleepy bark, then gives up halfway through the second. From above, a shutter creaks as someone leans out into the night air, sighs, and then pulls it closed again. The sigh is the most honest sound of the night. Here's your major historical fact. The Romans were among the first to formalize the idea of segmented sleep, and they did it without apology. Primum somnum, the first sleep, began a few hours after sunset. It was followed by a period of wakefulness, the vigilia, which people used to think, pray, even visit neighbors. Then came secundum somnum, the second, deeper sleep that carried them through to dawn. This wasn't strange or unhealthy. It was the norm. They even built their rhythms around it. You weren't lazy for sleeping twice. You were civilized. Right now, you're deep in the second sleep. The kind of sleep that doesn't ask questions. The kind that mends. That gathers all your scattered memories of the day and tucks them quietly into jars for safekeeping. Like olives in brine. You are not dreaming just yet, but you are in the room next to dreaming. You can hear its soft music playing through the wall. A flute, or a lyre, or the sound of leaves being swept gently by the wind. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans, particularly in rural areas, believed that bad dreams were caused not by poor sleep, but by spirits entering through the mouth while you slept. To prevent this, they would place a carved charm, often a small stone figure of a frog or a lion, next to the bed, facing toward the sleeper's face, to guard the breath. Yes, a tiny stone lion, facing your open mouth. The kind of ritual you only laugh at until you've had 3 nights in a row dreaming of your tax collector chasing you with a roasted turnip. Back in your room, the oil lamp has long since gone dark. The air is still. Even the lectus, your low bed of straw and linen, no longer creaks under you. It has accepted your weight, your surrender, and holds you gently, the way a riverbed holds the water that has finally stopped rushing. Historians still debate whether Roman sleep was more restorative than modern rest. Without artificial light and screen-induced insomnia, some scholars argue, the ancient body aligned more deeply with natural cycles. Others point out that overcrowding, noise, and the lack of personal space might have made every night a gamble. And still, somehow, the people endured. They even wrote poetry about naps. That alone makes them saints. Outside, the stars continue their quiet wheel over the rooftops. Jupiter gleams above the forum. Venus flirts behind a rooftop chimney. The moon, pale and thoughtful, rests on the shoulder of a statue, illuminating the stone cheekbones of a general who no longer commands anything but pigeons. You shift once, not awake, not dreaming, just adjusting. Your arm falls across your chest. A toe peeks out from under the sheet. Your lips part, and the smallest exhale escapes, long and soft. In that moment, you could be any Roman, a farmer, a baker, a scribe, a widow, a child, a soul, wrapped in linen, wrapped in night, wrapped in time. There's no urgency here, no rush, no task unfinished. The city understands. It says softly, as if whispering across 20 centuries, you are allowed to rest. And so you do. You don't wait, not fully, not with purpose. You rise like mist over warm earth, slowly, instinctively, halfway between a dream and a breath. Your eyes remain closed, but something in you opens. Not enough to think, just enough to notice. The world around you hasn't changed much. The walls are still quiet. The sheet is still warm. The time has shifted. It's deeper into the night now. The middle hour, where even torches give up and the city shrinks to a murmur. This is your vigilia again, that Roman in-between. You roll gently onto your side, the straw mattress sighing underneath you. The cool fabric of your tunic sticks lightly to your back, where sleep has gathered. Your pillow, uneven but familiar, smells faintly of rosemary and smoke. There's no reason to be awake. You are not summoned, not disturbed. This hour simply belongs to you, as it did to thousands before you, in chambers and alleyways, villas and insulae. You're not alone. You never were. Not in this. You shift slightly, lifting your head. The room is dark, but not blind. A crack of moonlight cuts across the floor, through the shutters. You can just make out the outline of the lamp, long cold. Beside it, your sandals. Beside them, your wax tablet. Abandoned thoughts frozen in mid-sentence. You don't reach for anything. You just lie there. Here's your major historical fact. Many Romans took advantage of this natural waking period. Some rose to pray at their household shrine, whispering petitions to their Lauras or to Somnus himself. Others visited neighbors, believing the night made for more honest conversation. Some just watched the sky and waited for dreams to call them back. You listen. The house breathes. A distant door creaks. A tile settles on the roof. Water drips into the impluvium with the slow confidence of a heartbeat. Rome has not fallen silent. It has simply stepped behind a curtain. You wonder, for a passing second, whether anyone else is awake nearby. A servant, finishing the last of the dishes? A soldier on night patrol? A mother feeding her child by candlelight? Your thoughts drift, not as sentences, but as images. The fig tree in the garden. The cracked tile near the threshold. A man you once saw sleeping upright in the Senate and wondered whether he was dreaming of glory or lunch. Your obscure cultural tidbit. It was believed by some that sleeping with a piece of parchment under your pillow, one on which you had written your worries, would let the gods take them overnight. In the morning, if the ink had faded or smudged, It was a sign your plea had been heard. If not, well, maybe write neater next time. You smile slightly, in the dark, at the idea of some god reading your sleepy scrawl and squinting with confusion. You sigh. Your chest rises, falls. The second sleep waits behind the door. Historians still debate whether this segmented sleep rhythm offered more peace or more burden. Was it a moment of freedom in the night, or simply a compromise with darkness? Perhaps it was both. The Romans, after all, knew that rest was not always restful, but it was always necessary. You close your eyes again, not to force sleep, just to wait for it. Outside, a breeze lifts the curtain and lets it fall again. In the distance, a rooster cries out too early, confused by a torch or a dream. No one answers him. The moonlight shifts an inch. The shadow of the fig tree leans slightly on the wall. Your body, having hovered on the edge of wakefulness, drifts backward again. Thoughts melt. Breath deepens. The second sleep returns, not heavy, not fast, but full. You are pulled into it, slowly and gently, as though cradled by a hand carved from time. And this time you dream of water over stone, of fresh bread on cool mornings, of a world wrapped in linen and silence, where nothing is urgent, and everything waits for the light. You are deep inside the second sleep now. There is no time here, no sense of minutes passing, no pressure to rise. You're tucked inside a Roman night, not just lying under it. And Rome, great and sprawling and proud, is sleeping with you. All its colonnades and temples and taverns, all its alleys and statues and stray cats. It's all wrapped in this same stillness, like a vast animal finally resting after a long, sun-hot day. You are not dreaming of war or speeches. You're not arguing in the forum or watching plays in the theatrum. No, you are dreaming of simpler things. A cool cup of water, the feel of warm linen drying on a line, a fountain that never stops whispering. Your arms are folded gently across your stomach, your feet just peeking out from under the sheet. One of your toes has found the familiar cool spot on the mattress that somehow always waits for you. Your breathing is slow and steady, not because you're trying, but because your body has remembered how to rest on its own. You don't know it, but the moon has shifted again. It now hangs just over the tiled rooftops, casting soft silvery lines across the sleeping garden. The fig tree in the courtyard sways, just slightly. Its leaves murmur secrets to the wind. Somewhere beyond your house, in the tangled heart of the Sabura district, a dog howls once, just once, and then stops, perhaps embarrassed. A window closes. A man mutters in his sleep. A woman pulls her child closer. All around you, the city is heavy with breath. Here's your major historical fact. Romans didn't think of sleep as wasted time. Quite the opposite. Writers like Seneca and Pliny the Elder believed that sleep restored not just the body, but also the soul. They advised letting the mind rest like a weary traveler, not dragging it from thought to thought with the iron chains of worry. Let sleep take you, Seneca wrote, as a friend takes your hand. Tonight, sleep has taken yours. You are not aware of your surroundings anymore. Not the wooden beam overhead. Not the crack in the wall that you keep meaning to plaster. Not even the lamp, long since dark. All of these things still exist. They're just waiting for you on the other side of the silence. You shift slightly on the lectus. The straw whispers, the linen sighs. Maybe you curl one leg up. Maybe your mouth falls open a little. That's fine. The gods aren't judging you. If anything, Somnus, god of sleep, is watching over your shoulder like a patient old tutor, nodding approvingly. Your obscure cultural tidbit. There was a belief among some Roman households that if you dreamed of laughing, it meant news would arrive within 3 days. If you dreamed of falling, someone in your family would spill wine. And if you dreamed of sweeping, the gods were reminding you, politely, to clean your own conscience. Some interpreted these signs with great seriousness. Others just blamed it on too much lentil stew. But there are no omens in your dream now. Only softness. Only quiet. Historians still debate whether this natural two-part sleep cycle, with its intermission of consciousness, led to better physical health. Some studies suggest it allowed people to process emotions, to reflect, to drift between layers of rest more organically. Others argue that constant disruptions from fires, from neighbors, from Rome itself, meant most people were still tired all the time, and yet somehow they managed. They built aqueducts, after all. In your sleep, you hear none of this. You hear water, and wind, and something else, not quite sound, not quite thought. Peace. That's what it is. You don't name it. You just live it, for this brief hour, untouched and unburdened by any empire. And when morning begins to stir, when Rome yawns and stretches, and starts heating water again, you'll still be here, resting, just a little longer. There's a kind of stillness that only comes just before the world wakes up, not silence. Rome never offers pure silence, but a hush, a suspension, like the city has taken one long final breath before exhaling into another day. That's where you are now, nestled deep in the last fold of second sleep. You haven't woken, not properly, but something inside you has turned toward the light. Your breathing changes, slightly deeper, slightly slower. Your fingers twitch beneath the sheet, maybe curling around nothing in particular. Your body remembers gravity again. The room is still wrapped in the gray-blue of early dawn. A strip of light sneaks between the shutters and crawls across the floor, painting the tiles in gold and shadow. Outside, a bird sings, not boldly, but as if testing its voice. A distant cart will squeals on the stone. The bakery's chimney sends up its first plume of smoke, curling into the pale sky. And yet, inside, you are motionless, floating in that sacred Roman hour between night and day. Tempus tacitum, the quiet time, a time the Romans revered without fanfare. No trumpet, no calendar, just habit, intuition, nature telling time in the curl of a fig leaf and the hush of wind through tile roofs. You stir slightly, turn your head on the pillow. Your lips part, perhaps a small breath escapes, the kind you don't notice. You are not ready to rise, but the body is beginning to loosen its hold on sleep. Here's your major historical fact. Sunrise in ancient Rome was not a moment but a movement. No clocks, no alarms. Instead, the start of the day unfolded like a scroll, slowly, one detail at a time. A door creaked open. A water jug tipped into a basin. A neighbor swept dust into the gutter. The first light painted the forum statues with gold. And somewhere, a rooster always got it wrong by 20 minutes. Romans who lived with discipline, soldiers, farmers, bakers, rose with this rhythm. Others stayed wrapped in linen a little longer, drawing the night closer around them, as if trying to learn one last lesson from a dream. And you lie there, eyes closed, somewhere between dream and memory. You might be dreaming of water trickling from a fountain, or of a garden full of ripe pomegranates. You might be hearing voices you haven't heard in years, or walking through a version of your house where all the walls are made of honey-colored marble. The dream doesn't matter, only the feeling does. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans kept a shallow bowl of water beside the bed, not for drinking, but for cleansing the spirit upon waking. They would dip their fingers and touch their forehead, like brushing away the fragments of dreams or ghosts of the underworld that might have followed them home. It was a small gesture, wordless, but deeply rooted in belief. Leave the night in the water, they said. Let the day begin clean. The servant outside your room has begun stirring. You hear the soft clink of ceramic against ceramic, a cup being set down, water being poured, bare feet brushing across mosaic. Still, you do not rise. Historians still debate whether this final stage of sleep, this slow return from second rest, was part of daily Roman life or a luxury enjoyed only by the fortunate. In truth, it was likely both. Some rose early by necessity, others lingered, but for those brief, silent moments before movement began, everyone belonged to the same unhurried hour. You shift again. One arm slips free from the sheet. Your foot rolls sideways. Your breathing deepens once more, then evens out. You may rise soon, but not yet. Let the light wait for you. Let Rome wake first. You've earned one more moment of stillness. You wake, softly, slowly, as if pulled from the bottom of a warm, quiet pool. Your eyes don't open right away. Instead, you sense the shape of the room around you, the faint sound of a broom sweeping in the atrium, the scent of damp stone and cooling embers. The presence of morning is undeniable now. It seeped in through the shutters, through the floor, through the fabric of the linen pressed against your chest. There's no bell, no barked order, no screech of light. Rome does not jolt you awake. It lifts the veil, piece by piece. You blink. The ceiling greets you, whitewashed plain, with that familiar crack in the plaster that vaguely resembles a sleeping horse. You've stared at it often, letting your mind wander into its crooked outline. Now, in daylight, it feels less like a dream and more like a marking of return. You're here. The night passed. The city survived itself. Again, you sit up. Your body resists a little. Not from pain, just from loyalty to the mattress. You've spent hours there. So many quiet hours, with only breath and thought. The lectus creaks beneath you, its straw shifting like polite applause. The sheet slips from your shoulders. Your skin is cool. The room is brighter now. The breeze through the window carries a trace of ash and time. You run your hands over your face. You've been kissed by sleep and carry its imprint. The heaviness in your limbs, the faint dryness in your eyes, the calm in your chest. You rub the corner of one eye with a knuckle and take a deeper breath. Here's your major historical fact. For many Romans, especially in middle and upper classes, the day began with water, not bathing, but ritual washing. A servant or family member would pour clean water over the hands and face, a symbolic cleansing as much as a physical one. To touch water at sunrise was to affirm life again, to step out of the dream world and back into duty. You walk barefoot to the basin by the window. The ceramic pitcher sits ready, beads of condensation forming along its curve. You pour the water into a shallow bronze bowl, and the sound is familiar, cool, steady, eternal. You dip your hands in, splash your face. The cold makes you gasp softly, and there you are, fully returned. Your tunic waits neatly on the stool. You lift it, shaking out the creases, and dress without ceremony. The cloth clings briefly to your skin before falling into place, loose and practical. A leather belt, sandals, the armor of another day. You step into the hallway. Light from the compluvium falls in golden stripes across the mosaic floor. The central fountain bubbles softly. The fig tree rustles. A breeze pushes open the curtain to the triclinium, and the smell of warm bread finds you. A servant appears and bows slightly, placing a small cup of pasca, diluted vinegar drink, on the table. It's tart, sharp, invigorating. You drink it slowly, letting the sourness shake off whatever dream fragments might still cling to your thoughts. Your obscure cultural tidbit. It was customary in some Roman homes to greet the day with a short personal offering to Fortuna. Nothing elaborate. Sometimes it was just placing a sprig of rosemary near the door, or whispering a wish while tying the belt. Fortuna, goddess of chance, had a reputation for mood swings. A bit of morning flattery was considered wise. The atrium hums now. The day is fully alive. Feet shuffle. Voices echo. The sounds of preparation. The clink of bowls, the opening of shutters, the folding of blankets, create a gentle chorus of renewal. Historians still debate how individualized the Roman morning routine was. Were these rituals spiritual, habitual, imitation of class ideals? Likely all of them. But what's certain is that morning was not taken for granted. It was not rushed. To begin the day slowly was to begin it well. You sit on the edge of the garden bench, watching the sun glint off the lion-shaped fountainhead. You place one hand in the water, just for a moment. It's cold, real. Now, the dream is gone, but not wasted. The sleep is over, but not forgotten. And Rome, old, restless, glorious Rome, rises again, as it always does, one quiet footstep at a time. The morning, now fully formed, embraces you like a citywide exhale. Rome no longer whispers. It speaks. The stillness of the night has completely lifted, but not in a rush. Rome never bolts out of bed. It unfolds. Like a scroll. Like a market stall's awning being tied up one string at a time. And now, you are a part of that unfolding. Washed, clothed, newly aware of the weight of your own limbs again. You are standing in your atrium, the heart of your domus, and sunlight has pooled in from the compluvium above. It strikes the impluvium below, the water inside trembling gently like the surface of a well-kept memory. You've watched this light fall 1,000 times before, but every morning it paints something new. A ripple, a pattern, a glint off the bronze bowl left beside the fountain. The house is old, but each day it greets the sun like it's never seen it before. You take a slow breath. The air smells of plaster warmed by sun, olive oil baked into the walls, and something sweet and rising, perhaps bread, perhaps dates, perhaps both. In another room, someone is singing quietly. They aren't trying to be heard. It's just the kind of song that hums itself out of someone who's already had a sip of sunlight. Your hands rest gently against the cool marble edge of the fountain. Your fingers dip into the water, disrupting its surface. The ripples travel outward and return again, and you wonder, just for a moment, if this is how the gods speak. Subtle, circular, gentle. Here's your major historical fact. In Roman households of some status, mornings were not rushed. The early hours before business were reserved for private matters, writing, spiritual offerings, even conversation with household members. Formal visits and public appearances came later. Morning was not for performance. It was for remembering that you are alive, and you feel alive now. Not busy, not urgent, just fully and quietly present. You walk the length of the peristyle garden. The stone under your sandals is still holding on to the night's coolness, but you can feel it losing the fight. The heat is coming. You pass your fig tree, its leaves rustling with a sound like a whispered warning. One ripe fig has fallen and split. Ants are already there, claiming their inheritance. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believed that eating the first fig to fall from your own tree without speaking a word guaranteed you protection from betrayal for the rest of the year. Others believed it simply cured indigestion. The lines between magic and medicine in Rome were, like their plumbing, advanced but occasionally questionable. A servant appears at the edge of the portico with a damp cloth and a tray. He bows and sets it near the bench where you now sit. A cup of watered wine, a slice of bread, 2 olives. This is not breakfast. This is an offering to your body, an acknowledgement. You have returned from the night. You may begin again. You eat slowly, the bread dry and soft in your mouth. The olives are sharp, bright, salty. The wine cuts through it all like a quiet conversation that finally makes sense. You don't look up. You don't need to. Historians still debate how much time the average Roman had for these morning rituals. Were they a luxury for the wealthy, or simply built into a world not yet obsessed with urgency? Likely both, but it's clear that mornings were considered sacred, unclaimed hours when no one expected too much from you yet. You rise. You walk back through the atrium, past your family's busts. They don't smile. They never do. But this morning, their eyes seem less judgmental. You nod to them anyway. Let them watch. Outside your front door, the city awaits, not an ambush, but an invitation. And inside you, the silence of the Roman night remains, not loud, not obvious, but threaded through your ribs like something remembered, something still keeping you whole. The streets of Rome receive you not like a stranger, but like a recurring character in a well-worn play. You've walked these stones before, some cracked, some sun-warmed, all heavy with footsteps that came long before yours and will come long after. The air is awake now, full of voices and clatter, sandals on pavement, a chorus of greetings, and the lazy groan of carts being pulled across uneven stone. The smell of bread, anchovies, and sweat merges into something uniquely Roman, something oddly comforting once your nose gives up on arguing. You join the current of movement, not hurried, not lost, just part of the flow. The baker's son is sweeping the street outside his shop with one hand while gnawing on a crust with the other. A fishmonger waves a sardine in the air like a wand. A woman yells across the alley to another, comparing laundry techniques. Nothing urgent is happening, and yet everything is. You turn toward the forum, not because you must, but because it pulls you like gravity. The marble columns catch the morning light and reflect it back with a kind of tired authority, like men who've seen too much and won't admit it. Here's your major historical fact. The Roman Forum, once just a swampy basin, evolved into the political and spiritual heart of the empire. It was where senators argued, where generals returned from war to thunderous applause or quiet exile. Even early in the morning, it held presence. One did not enter the forum lightly, even if one only came to eavesdrop. You pass a statue of Janus, god of beginnings, whose two faces seem to follow you, one watching the past, one the future. You nod respectfully, and in return, feel nothing at all, which seems entirely appropriate. Your footsteps take you to a shaded edge of the plaza, where merchants arrange their wares on low wooden platforms. Grapes, olive oil, saltfish, garum. A few scrolls are tucked under a cloth, as if they snuck into the market disguised as produce. A man near you mutters about the price of cabbage, being cursed by Mercury himself. You pause to watch a scribe, young, hunched, squinting, copy a letter onto wax with surprising delicacy. He doesn't notice the world around him. He might still be dreaming, or maybe he's recounting a dream on that tablet. Either way, he's part of the city now, awake, but only halfway present. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Romans often believed that if you could clearly remember a dream upon waking, especially the second sleep's dream, it was trying to tell you something. These dreams were not idle. They were messages, warnings, instructions. Some would even take them to a vates, a dream interpreter, who might charge a fee or simply stare at you until you confessed your secret yourself. You walk on, past the stone steps, past a fountain with chipped marble, past two boys chasing a stray chicken with the kind of joy that makes philosophers grumble. A baker smiles at you. You nod back. The sun climbs higher. The shade begins to vanish from the alleys. Rome, like you, has shed its linen and stood up to face the weight of another day. Historians still debate how much Romans thought about sleep after waking. Was it sacred, or just another bodily function, like bathing or sneezing? But maybe that misses the point. Maybe sleep was a kind of offering to the self, just as important as worship or work. A moment each night to belong to no one. You find a bench near the edge of the market, shaded by an old awning. You sit. You exhale. The city moves around you, and you let it. You are no longer asleep, but you carry the softness of sleep in your bones. The city knows, and it welcomes you back. Mid-morning in Rome is not loud. It's layered, dense with human motion and ancient routine. You're not just walking through a city. You're weaving through centuries of repetition, all unfolding at once. And you feel it, not in dramatic ruins or grand declarations, but in the things that barely register. A crack in a brick that someone once tripped on 200 years ago. A stain on a wall that survived 3 generations of paint and rain. The echo of a laugh that's long outlived its owner. You're sitting beneath a striped awning that was probably stitched by hand last year, but feels like it's been hanging since the Republic. The bench beneath you is warm from the sun. The stone beneath your sandals holds a smell. Baked limestone, bread soot, a hint of fig. People pass. Some make noise. Most don't. There's a rhythm to the foot traffic that doesn't match any marching drum, but flows like one anyway. A woman with a basket of leeks nods as she walks by. A boy tosses a pebble, misses, shrugs. A dog relieves itself in the middle of a side street with the confidence of a senator. Rome at this hour is wide awake, but it doesn't demand your full attention. You take out the last piece of dried fig from your pouch. Sweet, leathery, more fragrant than you'd remembered. You chew slowly. You've earned slowness. After 2 sleeps and no emergencies, you're practically a Roman deity yourself. Here's your major historical fact. Roman mornings didn't stretch endlessly into productivity like ours try to. After the Ora Sexta, about noon, business slowed dramatically. Courts closed. Public offices wound down. Merchants began to pack up their goods. Why? Because it was hot. And even Rome understood that sweaty people make bad decisions. Which is why you're not doing much of anything right now. Not planning. Not building. Just existing. You sip some watered wine from a clay cup, and it tastes like weak vinegar and relief. Across the alley, 2 older men argue over who makes the best garum in the city. They're getting heated, mostly with each other, but partly from the sun. Eventually one of them sighs, sits down, and shares his bread anyway. You laugh under your breath. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Romans believed that sharing food with someone during the Merides, the noon rest, created a temporary truce between enemies. It wasn't law, just expectation. Even if you hated someone's guts, if they handed you bread at midday, you ate it and shut up for an hour. That's the kind of city this is. Unapologetically functional, strangely elegant. The shadow beside you begins to shrink. You stretch out your legs. Your body feels a little heavier now, not in a bad way, but in the way things do when they've moved through too much light. Historians still debate how rigid this midday pause really was. Was it a citywide siesta or a luxury for the elite? The evidence is mixed. What we do know is that many Romans didn't power through the day. They yielded to it. And so do you. You stand, not suddenly, not slowly, just naturally. You walk past a man painting his shop sign for the 4th time in a month. He's gotten the red pigment wrong again. He curses under his breath, but keeps going. You pass a sleeping child curled in the corner of a doorway, one hand clutching a piece of bread. The pigeons nearby give him space. Even the city's birds seem to honor the softness of midday. You make your way toward quieter streets, toward somewhere shady, somewhere with a bit of breeze. The kind of place where you might sit for a while, or maybe close your eyes for just a minute. Not to sleep, no, but to remember the feeling of sleep. To remember second sleep. Its weight, its silence, its gift. Because even as Rome moves on around you, argues, laughs, sweats, negotiates, some small part of you is still curled beneath linen sheets, in the hour before dawn, where nothing is asked of you except to rest. By the time you reach the edge of the Subura, the sun is no longer something distant. It's a presence, heavy, high, and fully awake. The shadows that once softened your steps are now squeezed tight against walls and awnings, thin as ribbons. The city is sweating, and so are you. The Subura greets you without grace. It never needed charm to make itself known. This district lives differently than the marble calm of the Forum. It breathes faster, smells stronger, speaks louder. You step over a broken pomegranate, crushed on the stone steps. Ants gather at the juice like worshippers at a red altar. A chicken flaps indignantly out of your way. Laundry drips from window to window across the alley. Linen like sails in an invisible wind. Somewhere nearby, someone is singing badly and with great passion. This is not the Rome on coins or statues. This is the Rome of waking breath, cracked heels, oil smoke, and humanity packed so close it shares one heartbeat. You pass a tavern door, propped open with a ceramic jug missing its handle. Inside, 2 men argue in hushed tones over a board game that looks older than the walls. You don't know the rules, but you know that whoever loses will insist they were cheated. Here's your major historical fact. The Subura, dense, unruly, teeming, was home to everyone from craftsmen to gladiators, freedmen to philosophers. It was notorious for crime, nightlife, and its humid proximity to vice. But it also birthed brilliance. Julius Caesar was born here, and the poet Martial wrote fondly of it, calling it lively, vulgar, and endlessly honest. You lean against a wall of cracked brick, the mortar beneath your fingertips turning to powder. You pause, not for a reason, just because it feels right. A boy runs past chasing a hoop, laughing with wild, gleaming eyes. A woman pours water onto the street, watching the dust rise like ghosts from the stone. Your obscure cultural tidbit. In this part of town, locals believed that sweeping one's doorstep at noon prevented nightmares. Not demons, not curses, just dreams that stuck too long. So every day, at this hour, you'll find someone with a broom, banishing unwanted thoughts into the gutters. A fruit seller across the square offers you a slice of melon, sun-warm, dripping, ridiculously sweet. You take it. You don't ask the price. She doesn't name one. That's how transactions often go here. Half trade, half ritual, entirely human. You find a bench near the wall of a bathhouse and sit. It's warm but shaded. The city moves past you like a play you've seen before, but still enjoy watching. Somewhere above, a curtain flutters from a window, and you catch a voice reciting poetry, soft, rhythmic, possibly drunk. Historians still debate the extent to which the Subura influenced Rome's culture. Was it the beating heart or a barely tolerated lung? But scrolls and memory agree. This place never pretended to be elegant, and yet it thrived. In its chaos lived invention. In its noise, song. You stretch your legs out before you. There's nothing urgent to return to. No task that can't be postponed. You have entered the slowest, sleepiest pulse of the Roman day. The space between function and reflection. The hour when even ambition takes a nap. And as the heat presses gently into your skin, your thoughts drift. Not to tomorrow, not to duty, but to that soft linen bed, still waiting for you somewhere behind thick stone walls. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and Rome hums on. The air begins to shimmer now, as if the heat itself is rising from the stones to join the day's activity. It's the kind of heat that bends straight lines, that makes distant walls wobble gently, like they're breathing. You've walked far enough to feel it settle into your clothes, your shoulders, even your eyelashes. And yet, Rome does not stop. Not entirely. It simply changes its tone. You notice fewer voices shouting and more murmurs. Merchants move slower behind their stalls. The man who earlier tried to sell you a goose egg now fans himself with a palm leaf, half asleep. Even the dogs are quieter. One lies in a patch of shade beneath a cart, tongue out, chest rising and falling like a slow drum. You make your way toward a public fountain, not one of the famous, lion-spouting, tourist-gushed marvels, but one tucked away near the edge of a bathhouse complex. Its bowl is chipped, the carving worn into near smoothness. But the water? Cold, constant, clean. You lean in, letting your hands sink into the basin. The chill bites your fingers in the best way. You scoop a handful to your face. It runs down your cheeks, into your collar. You don't wipe it away. You sit beside the fountain. There's no need to go anywhere. Rome at midday tells you that sitting is a form of wisdom. Here's your major historical fact. Public fountains, lacus or salients, were part of the intricate Roman water system, fed by aqueducts that carried fresh water from miles away. These fountains weren't luxuries. They were necessities. Places to drink, clean, cool off, even worship. Each one reminded you that you were part of something engineered, ancient, and generous. You glance around. A mother braids her daughter's hair beside a column, using a pin carved from bone. Two men nap against the shaded wall, one with a hand still clutching a roll of parchment. A street musician plucks a broken-stringed lyre, playing for no one in particular. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believed that if you whispered your troubles into running water during the Merides, the water would carry them away, and the gods would not hear. A loophole in the divine surveillance system, if you will. Unsurprisingly, fountains became sites not just of relief, but of whispered confessions and secret wishes. You consider trying it. Just a quiet complaint, a single syllable of worry. But the sound of the water itself is so soothing that your concerns forget how to form. The city feels distant now, even though it's all around you. The shouting has faded. The movement slowed. Rome doesn't sleep. No, it's too proud for that. But it does drowse. You lie back against the stone, head tilted toward the sky. The sun is a white disk above. Birds circle it lazily. One lands briefly on the edge of the fountain, takes a sip, flutters away. Historians still debate whether midday rest was universal among Romans or more common in the southern provinces. Was it about climate, class, culture? Whatever the case, here in the heart of the empire, it feels as essential as breath. You close your eyes, not to sleep exactly, but to retreat, to drift, not backward, not forward, just gently sideways into stillness. And in that moment, the world of marble and dust, sandals and statues, merchants and myths, holds you in a kind of silent cradle, the kind only an old, sunlit city can offer, the kind that feels like the echo of second sleep, whispering to your bones that it's all right, you're allowed to rest here. Rome understands. When you open your eyes again, the city has changed its shape, not physically, but in feeling. The sun has shifted just enough to cast the walls in gold instead of white. Shadows stretch out longer, sliding across the cobbled streets like lazy cats. The air is less aggressive now, gentler on the skin. It is the beginning of Rome's late afternoon, a time for wandering, for digesting, and for pretending you still have important things to do. You ease yourself up from the cool fountain ledge with the kind of quiet groan that would make a Roman elder nod approvingly. Your limbs remember the sit. They stretch as if waking from their own nap. A breeze, an actual breeze, curls through the alleyway like an apology from the sun. You follow the air. It takes you toward the Aventine Hill, not the grand showpiece of a hill it becomes in poems or politics, but the lived inside, the shaded steps and family gardens, the humbler walls. This part of Rome doesn't brag. It sighs. Children kick a ball of bound rags across the plaza, laughing until one of them falls dramatically and calls it the end of Rome. A grandmother emerges from a doorway to hand out slices of something that smells like honey and vinegar. You're not offered one, but the smell is a gift in itself. Here's your major historical fact. The Aventine was once the home of the plebeians, Rome's working class, before evolving into a haven for poets, thinkers, and quiet wealth. It was also the site of the famous Aventine secession, where the plebs, frustrated with patrician dominance, symbolically left the city to protest. Rome, even in its architecture, remembers the noise of those who refuse to be ignored. You pass a garden tucked between two homes. A fig tree leans over a low stone wall. Its leaves are wide, waxy, whispering in a language that might be memory. You pause to smell a cluster of herbs planted along the walkway. Basil, lovage, rue. Someone here cooks with intent. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans hung sprigs of rue by their doors, not only as insect repellent, but to ward off envy. It was believed to have cooling properties for the mind. So if someone envied your success, the rue might cool their jealousy before it took root. Romans were very practical in their superstition. Envy was a pest, like flies or mice. Further along, the street opens to a modest terrace. 3 elders sit on low stools, playing dice on a flat board carved into the stone itself. They barely look at you, but one of them gestures toward the empty stool nearby. You sit. You don't play, but you watch. The man to your right mutters something about Jupiter being unfair. The others grunt. No one argues. In this hour, even the gods are tired. A few feet away, a woman balances a jar on her head with astonishing grace, heading uphill as if the slope were flat. Her daughter follows behind, carrying 2 apricots and a story she's clearly trying not to forget. You hear pieces of it in passing, something about a goose, a storm, and a missing sandal. You don't need the full story to feel its truth. Historians still debate whether Rome's neighborhood distinctions were as rigid as records suggest. Did the Aventine truly soften into refinement over centuries? Or did it always pulse with this mix of quiet pride and working hands? Likely the answer is both. Rome contains multitudes, and the Aventine never asked for consistency. You remain on the stool longer than you expected. The dice clack. The fig leaves rustle. Someone begins humming from an open window. Not a melody you know, but one that reminds you of things you've forgotten. Linen sheets, cool stone, the weight of your own breathing. Eventually you rise. You thank the men with a nod. One raises his cup of watered wine toward you, not as a toast, but as punctuation. And so you move on. Not fast, never fast, but with the measured ease of someone who knows the road ahead won't rush away. The light catches in your eye again as you turn a corner, and you find yourself back where you started almost. The wall bears a mural now visible in the slanted sun, a dancing figure, half faded, half defiant. She's still moving. So are you. And somewhere beneath the stride of your sandals and the golden hush of this hour, you carry the softened edge of sleep. Not the unconscious kind, but the kind that lingers when the body rests while the world continues to turn. You are, once again, half in the story and half in the silence, which, in Rome, is exactly where you're meant to be. The scent of roasted chickpeas calls you like a thread tugging through the heat. Garlic, cumin, maybe coriander. It's hard to name the notes exactly, but your feet follow before your mind can object. That's how this city works. You don't always choose where to go. Sometimes your nose, or a sound, or a shadow makes the decision for you. The street narrows slightly, the stone underfoot uneven, like the bones of something ancient pressing up beneath the skin of the city. On either side, homes lean in like gossips. The windows are open now, letting out laughter, cooking steam, and the occasional muttered curse. Curtains flutter like lazy flags of minor domestic nations. You find the source of the smell. An older man stands behind a brazier, tending skewers with one hand, sipping from a clay cup with the other. His robe is stained in a way that suggests he cooks often and well. He doesn't offer a greeting, just looks you in the eye and tilts his head. Unspoken Roman for "You want one?" You know it. He hands you a skewer wrapped in a vine leaf. The chickpeas blistered and crackling, threaded with chunks of pickled onion and something leafy. You take a bite. The heat hits you first, then the smoke, then the soft center of the chickpeas, almost creamy. You close your eyes, not dramatically, just enough to remember what it's like to feel grateful for food. Here's your major historical fact. Roman street food was common, especially among working people who didn't have kitchens in their apartments instantly. Vendors like this one were fixtures in neighborhoods, offering hot meals for a few asses, the bronze coins, not the donkeys, though the exchange rate was often similar. Food was not just nourishment, but one of the earliest public conveniences. The vendor says nothing else. He doesn't need to. You sit on the edge of a stone planter and eat. Around you, the world continues its lazy afternoon opera. A child hums tunelessly while tracing letters in the dust with a stick. A woman scrubs a copper pan and sings in a minor key. Somewhere, someone's goat is deeply unhappy about something, and yet it all feels peaceful. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Romans sometimes wore small amulets carved with symbols of food, figs, olives, even bread loaves, as charms for abundance. One common superstition held that dreaming of legumes meant financial luck was coming. So yes, your lunch might also be a prophecy. You toss the skewer stick into a clay bin and stretch. The heat still clings, but the sun is no longer overhead. It casts things sideways now. The shadows are getting their shade back. You walk on. At the next corner, an artist has set up a stall. He's sketching quickly with a stick of charcoal on pale, reused parchment, faces mostly. Not glamorous portraits, but the wrinkles and furrows of real people. The faces of Romans who lived between markets and meals. You recognize one of them, a woman you passed earlier balancing a jug on her hip. The artist glances up, squints, and then grins. "You look like you've napped in a good century," he says. You smile but say nothing. In Rome, some compliments don't need answers. Historians still debate the nature of daily life for the lower classes in Rome. So much of what survives, letters, statues, documents, comes from the elite. But clues like these stalls, meals, and murals paint a picture of people who lived loudly and vividly, even if no senator ever wrote their names down. You take one last glance at the sketch in progress, a wrinkled face, eyes closed in thought or sleep. It's not your face, but it could be. It carries the same softness around the brow, the same sun-warmed stillness you feel now in your chest. You leave the artist with a nod and follow the curve of the street as it begins to open into a wider road. The sounds grow more spacious. The city is stirring again, not quite back to full volume, but thinking about it. And you're still drifting, but awake, federal rested, observed, carrying inside you a few spoonfuls of oil, a roasted legume or two, and a memory of voices carried by heat and stone. Rome, in this hour, doesn't need your effort, just your presence. So you walk, slowly, and the city, without asking, folds you into the fabric of its long, breathing afternoon. The road widens like a yawn. You step out of the narrow, murmuring shade into a street brushed with amber light. The late afternoon sun rolls lazily over the rooftops, gilding clay tiles and window shutters, painting golden streaks on walls that have been retouched by centuries and sunlight alike. You feel it first on your face, then on your arms, warm, but not oppressive now. This is a gentler sun, a goodbye sun. There's a subtle shift in energy all around you. Not quite a rush, but a stirring. Rome is slowly waking from its postprandial nap. Markets begin to breathe again. Shopkeepers unlatch shutters. Children reappear with dusty knees and new stories. The air carries more voices now, layered like a conversation you're welcome to overhear, but not required to join. You drift toward a small intersection, where three streets braid together. At the center stands a Campadum, a tiny shrine dedicated to the Laras, the household spirits who guarded street corners and boundaries. A few wilted garlands still hang from a wooden frame, leftover offerings from an earlier festival, or maybe just a quiet neighbor remembering tradition. Here's your major historical fact. These Laras Campatales were believed to protect neighborhoods and the people within them. Their shrines dotted the city's intersections, often tended by local caretakers or slaves chosen annually for the task. It wasn't just about gods. It was about community, place, and invisible guardians watching the spaces between homes. You pause in front of the shrine. There's a small bowl at its base, half filled with olive pits and flower petals. You don't know the exact ritual, but it feels wrong to walk past without acknowledgement. So you give a slow bow of your head. Not for worship, just respect. The air around the shrine feels stiller, as if it's watching back. You move on. To your right, you pass a doorway open wide, revealing the dim interior of a tablinum, a home's central room. Through the gloom, you see a mosaic floor, blue tiles forming the shape of a fish, curling into a circle. A cat watches you from a threshold, its eyes unreadable. It blinks once and then disappears into the house like a rumor. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believed that cats could walk between worlds, the living and the dead, the waking and the dreaming. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was considered deeply unlucky, not because of divine punishment, but because the boundary it guarded might tear. You suddenly feel grateful for the blink. Farther down, you pass a woman grinding herbs with a stone pestle in her doorway. Her hands move with slow precision. Lavender bay, something darker. She hums, not for you, but the sound reaches your ears like a lullaby from another life. You smile, and she returns it with the faintest tilt of her head. A boy runs past, shouting something about a cart race, trailed by two friends laughing breathlessly. One drops a sandal. No one stops to pick it up. It lies in the road, like a monument to momentum. You find another bench, smaller, older, half-cracked, but perfect. You sit. You listen. A pot clangs in the distance. Someone coughs. A pigeon scolds a statue. Historians still debate how cohesive these neighborhoods truly were. Did the Laras bring unity? Did daily rituals bind strangers into neighbors? The truth is slippery, like a fig skin underfoot. But moments like this, a shared look, a passed cup, a whispered prayer, tell their own stories. The light is shifting again. It glows now, not overhead, but low, streaming in long diagonals across the stone. And you're still, not waiting, not moving, just still. You rest your hands in your lap and breathe in the dust, the oil, the faint scent of basil crushed under someone's heel. Rome continues. It always does. But for now, it continues gently, and it allows you, just for a moment more, to be its quiet companion. The light drapes itself across the city now, slow and golden, like honey poured from a tall jar. It sticks to the tops of arches, clings to the rims of rooftops, and settles on your shoulders like an old friend's arm. The air is softer here at the edge of day. Even the dogs barking in the alley sound like they're only doing it out of habit. You rise from the bench, not because you're in a hurry. Rome doesn't encourage haste at this hour, but because the light invites you forward. The stones underfoot have cooled a little, and with every step, you feel the friction of sandals and time. You're heading toward the baths, not the massive, palatial ones used by senators and poets and those who speak only in quotations, but a smaller complex, tucked into a less crowded quarter. The balneum here is modest, frequented by local workers, scribes, and anyone who has the coin and the need to rinse off a day. As you approach, the familiar sounds reach your ears. Water splashing, soft conversation, the occasional yelp when someone misjudges the heat of the caldarium. It's not chaotic. It's communal. Here's your major historical fact. Bathhouses in Rome were far more than places to get clean. They were centers of social life, relaxation, even business. Some Romans bathed twice a day, moving from hot to cold rooms, receiving massages, discussing politics, and sometimes enjoying poetry readings. The balnea were the empire's daily rituals disguised as leisure. You step inside. The steam meets you like a curtain of breath, wrapping your face, curling your hair slightly, dampening your tunic. It smells of mineral water, oil, and stone that has been wet for centuries. You nod to the attendant, a teenage boy chewing on a fennel stem. He gestures with a lazy hand toward a stack of towels that look almost clean. You take one. In the tepidarium, the warm room, people sit on benches, eyes closed, letting the heat do its work. A man beside you rubs olive oil into his arms with the focus of a scholar. Another hums a folk tune, likely older than the Republic. You stretch your legs out, let the warmth sink into your bones. The day leaves you slowly. Not all at once, just the parts that don't need carrying anymore. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believed that bathing at twilight made your dreams clearer. The transition between hot and cool water mimicked the body's natural movement towards sleep, and the evaporation on the skin was thought to lift troubled thoughts. Bathhouses became not just a preparation for dinner, but for dreams. After a time, you move to the frigidarium, the cold room. You step into the plunge pool and gasp, quietly, respectfully. But yes, it's cold, and sharp, and utterly perfect. The chill wraps your limbs, wakes something in your chest. For a moment, you feel entirely present. You rise, dripping, and sit by a basin. A boy walks past humming, carrying a tray of oil and a small wooden comb. You wonder what your hair looks like after a day of walking through Rome's breath. You decide not to worry about it. Historians still debate whether these smaller baths were as politically charged as their grander counterparts. Were they centers of gossip and power games, or simple sanctuaries from the day? Perhaps they were both. Steam is generous. It hides schemes as easily as it soothes muscles. You dry your arms and step out again into the open air. The light has faded now into copper, the edges of the sky kissed with purple and wine-dark blue. Rome prepares itself for the evening in the same way it prepares itself for history. Slowly, deliberately, and without asking for permission. And you feel cleaner, but not just in skin. Lighter somehow, not younger. Rome doesn't make you younger, but more held. More part of something that existed long before your breath, and will continue long after your exhale. You take a deep one now. Inhale steam, oil, evening bread baking somewhere down the street. Exhale the weight of the day. Night is almost here, and the city hasn't stopped, but it has slowed. And so have you. Night slips into Rome not with a roar, but with a sigh. The sun is finally gone, tucked behind the hills like a child sent to bed without dessert. In its place, a blue dusk stretches out across rooftops and tiled courtyards. The city no longer glows, it hums. Oil lamps flicker into being behind latticed windows. Torches crackle gently in wall sconces. Shadows no longer threaten. They lean, relaxed, familiar. You walk slowly now, not out of fatigue, but reverence. The day has softened you. You are no longer a visitor. You've become part of the rhythm. The uneven press of cobblestones beneath your sandals, the whisper of tunics against stone, the distant roll of a wooden cart. Everything moves as one long exhale. People gather now in corners and courtyards. Dinner is winding down. Platter scraped, wine refilled. Laughter rises, not sharply, but like a tide. You pass a small gathering of friends reclining on low cushions. One strums a lyre, poorly, and the others pretend not to notice. Someone quotes a line from Virgil and forgets the ending. No one corrects him. Here's your major historical fact. Evening meals in Rome, Sina, were often long, winding affairs. For the wealthy, they could stretch for hours with multiple courses and entertainment. But for everyday Romans, a simple meal shared with family or neighbors under the fading light was the norm. Bread, olives, lentils, cheese, and if fortune smiled, a bit of fish or wine. You're handed a plum by a girl with dusty feet and a gap-toothed smile. You don't know her. It doesn't matter. Rome shares. You sit on a low wall overlooking a courtyard garden. The leaves rustle gently, touched by the cool breath of evening. Somewhere a fountain murmurs. Insects begin their tiny chorus. The moon, fat and indifferent, rises above the forum. Your obscure cultural tidbit. Some Romans believed dreams entered through the left side of the bed. Superstition held that placing a sprig of mint under your pillow could attract prophetic visions, though others argued that only fasting before sleep made dreams clean enough to be useful. You suspect most Romans just hope not to dream of tax collectors. Children chase fireflies near the garden's edge. A mother calls them in. A dog barks once and then curls into sleep. You lie back, palms against warm stone, the sky overhead dusted with early stars. Historians still debate the exact rituals Romans followed before sleep. Incense, prayer, silence, diaries. We know they washed their feet, often told stories, and sometimes placed protective charms under their pillows. But mostly they rested. The day was long. The empire could wait. And now, so can you. You lie there under the Roman sky, your eyes tracing the stars as they emerge. First one, then another, and soon a quiet scatter of light, like the gods remembered how to whisper. The night air is cool, but not cold. It wraps around your arms like a soft cloak. The stone beneath you still holds the memory of sun, warming you from below. You can feel the pulse of the city, now not in its footsteps or voices, but in the way the air seems to breathe. Slow, deep, unhurried. A final oil lamp flickers out behind a shutter. A gate creaks closed. Somewhere, someone sings a lullaby in a language that is half memory, half sleep. And you, lying there with fig on your breath and dust on your soles, are not a visitor anymore. You are part of it, part of the quiet bones of the city, part of the story that does not end when the page closes or the sun sets. You are the silence between footsteps, the warmth between shadows, the dream that rises slowly from ancient stone and rests gently on your chest. Let it stay there. Let the stars spin without you for a while. Let the empire govern itself. Tonight, your only duty is to breathe. You've walked enough. You've learned enough. You've remembered enough. Now close your eyes. Rome will still be here in the morning, and so perhaps will you.